here with Dave Mehling. He is a songwriter, videographer, producer, and guitarist with acts like Gaelynn, the Fontanelles. And we'll have to talk about his newest single, Garden, from his upcoming album Beach Boy, which I'm super excited to learn more about.
Thanks for having me, Ben. I haven't seen you in... when's the last time I saw you in real life?
That's kind of a scary question.
14 months ago?
That is very possible.
When did we shoot that video?
That was October, I think, 2019. Okay. So that's very possibly the last time I saw you.
Whoa.
Dave, who is also a wonderful videographer and magician behind the camera for a lot of artists. So we did this video, Fireflies, and we did it in the park, kind of in my neighborhood by Lake Harriet. There's a lot of people, maybe 25, 30 people got together, and it's weird watching that video now because you're like, oh, everybody's together and they don't have no masks. What's going on?
I know. It's just wild. Yeah, kudos to you for having so many friends who came out to help you. That was so fun.
It was really beautiful.
Yeah.
It was like a really magical kind of end of summer experience. It was super fun. And you just made it look amazing. So.
Oh, thanks, Ben.
We were just talking earlier about you finished teaching a few minutes before this. What's your routine look like these past few weeks, during the pandemic and everything?
Ups and downs. I think that you caught me at a good time because I think August was a great month. I don't know what your experience was in August, but political and social unrest aside, as a personal note, August was fine for me. Maybe it just has to do something with the weather. Everybody I was around seemed to have a relaxed attitude, and I just had like an all right month. But things are a little touch and go there. I think one of the things that like helped me was just like maybe having a little routine. And like at the beginning of quarantine, I had like video game phase. I had like reading phase. And I feel like in the last couple months, I'm more like, okay, we got to treat this like 9 to 5 or I'm going to go nuts, So like writing every day and exercising and kind of maybe taking some of the lesson stuff to a little extra level and not being complacent, teaching students over Zoom and making sure I find them new music and stuff like that. But August was all right. I think it's going to get dismal here in a couple months. But yeah, half of that is just being able to get outside and just kind of like soak in a little sunshine, and visit a couple spots around the state and unwind a little bit. I didn't do that so much at the beginning of quarantine because I don't think it was recommended really, and no, I'm just like, I hope that December and January aren't too cold. You know what I mean?
I feel like a lot of us have this just impending sense of doom beyond the normal winter that we experience in the Twin Cities. But like, for me personally, it's like, okay, can I visit? I mean, right now I can visit my parents in their backyard outside. Mm-hmm. Will I see them for the next 5 months?
Yeah, something for sure to think about. My daughter is 8 months old. And it's great to see my folks now, but I don't know what it's going to look like when she has her birthday in December or, January and February. Are we going to feel comfortable with them kind of quarantining and coming over to our place? Or I don't know. Mm-hmm. But it's also better not to ask yourself all those questions, Like with all like stressful things in life, it's a fine line between planning and then just like knowing that you have the will to kind of get through anything and not like letting that anxiety well up. So
like we have the minimum of problem solving skills. We can get through basic math problems. We've never seen this before, but conceivably we know where to find food.
Yeah,
things like that.
Yeah, totally. What is your lesson teaching like online? Like, how do you like it?
Well, I'm kind of finding, and I've heard a couple other people say this too, that it seems like you would actually be more likely to get complacent teaching, in your own studio space or your own home. over Zoom or Skype or whatever, but I feel like I have to be way more prepared for it. And there's something about just the interface of it, like, where do I make eye contact with the student? Are they,
Big time.
5 seconds behind me?
Yeah.
So
I caught a kid, and tell me if I'm just going to open like Google here. Look at my glasses. And I caught him. I'm going to search, Ben. I'm searching you, and I'm scrolling through Google, and I saw the window in the reflection of his glasses moving, and I think he was playing like a video game, like Fortnite or something. Because I was trying to teach him Wonderwall. God, and you know what? I'm gonna be honest. I don't like that song one bit, but we're and like I'm like, okay, so you got your E minor shape and your G. Let's do those first 4 chords. And he's like, huh? And I'm like, you can't even focus for a half hour. Like, can you just try? I mean, could you imagine if you were teaching, like, what's a classical guitar piece? Whatever. And then you're just like, yes, it's kind of like an E triad. Use your second finger, scrolling through Google. I swear.
I've never had that so far. That's a new one for me, at least. So that's hilarious.
It must be a reflection on me, obviously, but
well, I definitely feel like there's that pressure to, like, because I felt this on the other end of doing virtual kind of Zoom tours of whatever, like a zoo or something, or other things, and it's like you definitely have to pay extra attention to grab the person's attention.
Yeah.
And to make sure that you're really extroverted.
Yeah.
And something about that, just that dead virtual airspace that just kind of sucks the energy out.
It's harder, I think, than being in a face-to-face, without a doubt. But one of the cool things is that ear training is increased like tenfold with the students. Because it's like a lot of like, dot, 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 play that, dot, 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 And that's good. It's kind of an old school way to learn that I don't always do when we're sitting there like looking at a chart or something face to face.
You're actually doing a lot of kind of interactive back and forth.
Like, I'm trying, yeah. Because we don't always develop that like in person. A lot of kids can copy real easy fingerings on the piano or kind of see what you're doing on guitar. But if I'm like just have my guitar like this, you can't see what I'm doing per se, and you kind of got to listen. And
like you said, there's a lot of ear training and kind of arranging possibilities.
Yeah.
Even if it's on the kid's laptop or iPad. And
the entrance to home recording is so minimal. I don't know who I was talking to the other day, but it was a producer for some hip hop projects. And he says half the time people just come in with a voice memo of their verse and they just put that over a beat. And I think that there's been probably top 40 songs that have been recorded on an iPhone.
I'm sure you're somebody who has just like miles worth of voice memos and ideas on your phone. Oh yeah,
totally. I was almost like a badge of pride. I just crossed like the 700 mark of voice memos, but that doesn't count the ones that I renamed. So I must have 1,000. Late night, drinking wine, playing guitar, usually.
There's some magic in there somewhere, even if it's like first couple seconds of something where you can listen back on and not just, shudder in horror and go like, okay, that was cool.
I usually know, like, when I demo a song, you know, you get really excited when you write something. You can't step out of that initial excitement. Maybe it's just because you never explored that like chord progression or melody before. You're just so psyched. Like, I can't believe I came up with this. As soon as I play it for like Melissa, my partner, or a good friend, like, within the first 5 seconds, I get a feeling whether it's a good song or not. As soon as I play it for somebody else, you know what I mean? Like, my ego like immediately grabs hold and is like, dude, that's not a good song. Or like if you sit there and you're cringing or like you're slightly embarrassed, like that's always my sign to like, nope. other side of that is like performing it live for the first time, and you, not even the audience's response, but you just start to notice like, this isn't that great. I don't know how you filter through the ideas, but they're not all good.
And sometimes you don't know until you're, like you said, playing it in front of other human beings, and they're not responding in quite the way that you thought. Have
you ever found there must be a name for it, but like if you listen to a song enough times, you'll just like it, sort of. You know, like if you're teaching a pop song, like if I'm teaching like, oh, I don't know, like that song Blinding Lights by The Weeknd is really popular. I don't like it, but I bet I've listened to it 50 times, and like now I like it. Just that like repetition.
I'm curious to know if that does have a name. I mean, in my world, it's kind of like whatever, Netflix show we're watching at the moment. It starts out and I'm like, okay, it's not Breaking Bad, and then halfway through, like, oh my god, I can't stop watching this.
Yeah, exactly. We just like get sucked in, or our brain goes on kind of autopilot, or like, oh, this is familiar. This feels really good. I just found out about that Eric Satie song, Vexations.
He's awesome.
And it's like this short piano line, and his marking is to play it 840 times. And so apparently he was a pretty eccentric guy. Like, he only ate foods that were white. And he's a very abnormal, like, sleep schedule, and, as geniuses are prone to do. But yeah, this song is, and it's like more or less atonal, sort of, whatever the harmony was at the time, that's kind of like stretching out a little bit. But, after you listen to it 5 or 6 times, you're like, okay, I can kind of vibe on this. And I imagine if you listen to the full performance, which exists out there, like 12 hours or 19 hours, you'd probably really get like that tune.
Our mutual friend, bass player Andrew Foreman, who has recorded a lot on your songs. We in college, we did this thing. There's this piece in kind of the early minimalist composition phase in the 20th century, in C, where it's these little, you've probably played it before or know.
There's like 54 little cells or something. Yeah.
And for somebody in the music department decided that it would be a good idea to try to set the world record for longest performance of In C, not best or most noteworthy, but like 24 hours was the goal.
Whoa.
And we barely made it through 12.
This was at McNally?
This was at McAllister.
Oh, McAllister, sorry.
It was outdoors at night, and somebody called the cops, so we had to move it, but continue playing. So somebody had to keep the
piano players
going
just
as we moved into the library. And after hour 12, you'd kind of imagine that you'd be in this altered state of reality by then, but I really just was so sick of hearing music at all.
Yeah. That's insane. That song does move through some sort of tonal change, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like a few different like chord or like mode changes on top of C, so it's not totally out there atonal.
I did have like a pie-eyed like vision at the beginning of quarantine of getting my Twin Town guitar students to record and play that song, but I think it'd be really hard to sync up, you know what I mean? Because I would just like have them all film it, and they could do the different cells at different times, and we could loop them or whatever. And when I started going through the list of how much work it would be to put it together, I decided probably not. But
right, depending on where the person is in their journey with playing to a click, that would be like a lot of editing for you.
That's always funny. Like I always think about like the soul and spirit of music first, then sometimes there's also this like muscular macho, like what's the right word, like just doing things for the sake of showing how much you can like play an instrument. And I think both those things are really cool, but there's a balance, like, you know what I mean, like making music that's just like muscular and like alpha versus music that's just like I'm just gonna play a C and just wait. You know, it's like
Totally.
there's the middle ground. Like I don't necessarily subscribe to people who do one thing on either end of the spectrum so hard. You know, I like there's the good middle ground is what we need.
Totally.
So like the idea of playing a song for as long as you can play it is like absurd concept. You know, like that's not a musical concept. That's like a human endurance concept.
And if it's some minimalist composition for 12 hours, or if it's like how many notes can you shred in one, per millisecond or whatever, it's kind of it's
How many
cool
notes
to balance those elements.
can you shred per millisecond? You ever
Google that?
No, you personally, Ben.
Oh God. The metronome journey. You ever checked out the YouTube channel Two Set Violin? It's these two kind of barely reformed classical violinists who just mercilessly mock and make fun of like videos and representations of classical music on TV. And the show Umbrella Academy has this kind of a central role that's filled by like classical violin playing, and they take apart kind of the actor's portrayal of playing the violin, but there are other ones where they just rag on anybody who plays what do you call it, Flight of the Bumblebee.
Oh sure.
At like 500 beats per minute, and they slow down the audio, and like it's so sloppy.
I'm sure.
So great.
Yeah. I wonder what it would be like to be an actor and have to pantomime music. Like whenever I watch a movie, if it's like a biopic, I look so closely at like what the actors are doing, and occasionally I'm super impressed, and occasionally it's like that's a bunch of BS. I can't think of a good example, but
what's a film recently that's like paid really close attention? Oh, even Coco. I was like the only person in the audience. Oh yeah, everybody else was like bawling their eyes out at the story, and I was like, he's getting the right chords. That's exactly the right strumming pattern.
Get that like nice. It's like the you hit the F sharp down there on the E string to the. Oh man,
it's so funny.
There's this movie called Cotton Club or something by Francis Ford Coppola, and Richard Gere plays a trumpet player. Apparently, Richard Gere can actually play the trumpet, but he like wrecked all his scenes because he was so obsessed with showing off how well he could play the trumpet. Yeah. So the lore goes.
Hashtag things I didn't know about Richard Gere.
Yeah, so many things.
Oh, goodness. Dave, you had a show recently that I think has been rescheduled for this Thursday, September 3rd. Is that right?
Yep.
And this is with Al Church?
Yep, yeah.
Who is also a Duluth native.
We didn't meet each other really in Duluth. We met each other down here. But yeah, I'm playing. Elle's playing. Chris Bergmark's going to join me on the tabla. Tom's going to play some guitar. Yeah, because I was practicing like a lot, trying to learn these songs that I haven't played because there's no real reason to. But now that Tom and Chrissy are there, just let them go, and I'll just kind of, emote a little bit. And I'm so excited. I love playing with those two. Tom
has played a number of your recent releases.
Yep.
I wasn't sure that if Chrissy had. I knew you did have tabla on one track.
Yeah. I think in the album there's 10 tunes. I think there's tabla on 8. She didn't record it. My buddy Pratik Singh did. But Chrissy's playing this gig. And kind of the whole vibe of the album in general is like every tune kind of started out with just drones, kind of resampled sounds and just real patty, moving, ethereal, stereo, wobbly sounds. And then we kind of just constructed like these folky songs. We kind of just overlaid them on top of those tones, if that makes sense. So like when we went in the studio, we had a big drone. I started playing the guitar, and then we brought in the rhythm section, played the song, and I kind of edited it all together. I took out the drone later. Some of the tabla's been replaced with like I programmed sort of representations of the tabla rhythm. So it's kind of a cool sound. But like when we play live, we've been doing the same thing. So we start every tune with just like a drone, or kind of an ambient modal floating around the key of the tune a little bit. Play the song, and then just kind of let it float off into space again. But obviously playing with somebody like Tom Nordlund makes that really easy to explore those spaces. Does that make sense? Like
Totally. And now, just to be clear, you're talking about 10 songs, right? This is not your upcoming album.
This is the upcoming album. Yep.
Oh.
Yeah. So the one that I put Garden out, the single, a couple weeks ago. That's one of the tunes that has a drum kit on it. So that one's a little different. But the other tunes, a few of which I put out already, that's was kind of the process of recording them. And so, they were all written, but in order to kind of get a band behind them as opposed to doing it just traditionally, I thought it just allowed everybody to have a lot more freedom. Is when you put on your headphones and you're sitting in the studio, instead of just hearing a click, you heard a whoa, 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 like warbles. Sometimes there was a rhythm track too. So it was almost like playing karaoke with my music. There's no real room for error, it's so much easier to play along with a drum machine. And when there's all that bass and all that sound filled in, I don't feel like you feel as conscious about the decisions you're making when you're playing. You might overplay a little bit, but it just is a comfortable way for me to record, at least. I don't know how everybody else felt about it, but
Interesting.
Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, it does. Well, that's interesting to hear because, when I took a listen to Garden, it was it seemed very intentional and very orchestrated in terms of all the different textures.
Yeah.
And B, it seemed like there were a lot of kind of challenging chord changes that wouldn't necessarily adhere to a drone. So it's interesting that it possibly came out of that process.
Yeah. That tune, I charted out, for sure. I don't remember if we had a drone for the first half, which is all sort of in the key of F minus a couple chords. But then the other side of that was, we had Tom play guitar on that song. I played guitar. My friend Jordan Taylor played. Jeremy Ilvisacker played guitar on it. And so then just taking all those parts and mixing them in almost kind of random ways kind of made that tonal sound at the end. So yeah, that one. And I did make charts for all the tunes, so there was a framework. But I don't know that we adhered to them real well. And sometimes reading a chart in the studio is not the cup of tea for a rock song, and so there's some wrong notes in there, but the thing has sort of an atonalness where it doesn't matter, if I hit a D and you hit a D sharp, whatever.
Well, yeah, but there's from the outside it seems like a lot of that is intentional. There's a discord, there's a kind of a dark thing that bubbles up from all those sounds, and it seems like there are a lot of kind of sonic Easter eggs in there on repeat listen. So
I hope so. Yeah, in terms of the composition, it's I didn't think at all too much about it either. I just took the shapes. Do you remember when you just learn guitar and you just oh, I know a chord shape, and you just kind of move it around? That's kind of all I did. If you're playing power chords in the 90s, and so the shape is there, 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 there. It's well, I'll just do that all over the neck. And then if people just want to make squeals and squawks, we can do that.
That's great, because I totally had my own preconceptions of maybe how you were thinking about it, and it's totally different. Obviously.
Well, have we talked before about how you try to get back to that naive place that you were when you were learning music in order to maybe write better? I think back to when I was a freshman in college, I feel I wrote some songs that I really liked, and theory wise or whatever, they aren't something that I would write now because I don't think I could, because I either I know too much, or I've like learned how to play too much. Not saying I'm like an excellent like guitar player or piano player or like an expert in theory, but like I like have too much knowledge in certain areas where I feel like I can't just sometimes play a song. Just have to overanalyze everything or think about it too much. I don't know how you get back to that spot, you know, like using like open tunings or new tunings and stuff is kind of cool and like a good way to refresh like your brain and but yeah, I don't know if you feel that way. Like you write a lot of music and you play a lot of classical music, or you have, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I literally feel like we were starting that conversation almost a year ago, and you were talking about a lot of the music that you were planning on recording.
Yep.
And I was like, yeah, you know, I feel the same way about how I first felt about just instrumental guitar music, and it was like all amazing and kind of shimmery and glistening.
Yeah.
And then it's like you refine those little pathways in your brain and maybe find it more difficult over time to kind of surprise yourself.
Find that sweet spot.
Yeah.
You know, like it's different. Like if you listen to that John Fahey record,
what is it? The Transfigurations of Blind Joe Death. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
That one with the crazy, weird gothic album cover.
Yep. Like when you listen to that, you're like, what's going on? I don't play guitar like that. You know, I know a G chord. And then you learn a couple tunes and you start to hear it. You're like, oh, he's probably playing like this, or he's probably doing this. It doesn't take all the magic out of it. Some ways it elevates what you're hearing. But like from a compositional standpoint, I just think that finding that sweet spot where it's just unknown to you what you're making is the best. You know, if we all sat down every night and it's like, well, you know, you know what really grinds my gears is when people are like, I'm going to write a really sad country song. That's fine. But like, that's not where a song should come from in many ways. You know what I mean? Like a song should like come from inside you. Like if you just sat down to say, I'm going to pen a sad bastard country song, like what are some tropes of country music? Let me combine those, put them in my computer brain and spit out a sad, beautiful country song. I don't know. I try to avoid that. And it bugs me when people do that for some reason. I don't know. Not that anything should bother me, but...
Well, it just, that approach seems very like assembly line.
Not that there's really anything wrong with doing that, because you just got to write music if you want to be a songwriter. And you know what? A cool thing I did recently too was I mapped a MIDI keyboard in Pro Tools, right? So I took like, you take the sound of like every note, but instead of having them all be like C, C sharp, D, D sharp, like in order of a piano, I just like randomized the keys. So like when I played a C, it would be like a D, and when I played like a D, it would be like a C. And so then I kind of just played like rhythmically and found like new chord shapes that I never could have imagined before.
That's so weird that in like, you know, however many years of playing music, I've never thought of a keyboard being tuned to anything different.
Yeah, isn't that far out?
Playing shapes on the keyboard that are non-standard. I'm like, what?
Do you know, have you ever heard of this woman, Wendy Carlos? She did Hooked on Bach, like the synthesizer Brandenburg concertos and stuff. But she's super cool, number one, because I think she's like the only transgender musician that I've ever like heard about from that era, like from the 70s. Maybe she doesn't get enough credit for that. Maybe she doesn't want to. I don't know. But and then she has this really cool ambient record called like Sonic Seasonings, which is a great title. But in the 80s, she took like a synthesizer and mapped a 100-note scale within an octave and composed on that. So it's crazy, like microtonal for a soundtrack for Beauty and the Beast, like a 80s version.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
So cool. Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna have to go check that out.
Yeah, I think it's on YouTube. It's definitely not. It's not streaming on like streaming sites, but Apparently it took her a really long time to compose that music, because she did try to find like harmonies, you know, and stuff like that. But I mean, if you could imagine like playing a third, it'd be like that. It's so cool. I just love that kind of stuff. I know it's not relevant to like what we do in our day-to-day lives, and it's not practical really as a musician, but it's just so friggin' interesting.
Well, I just wonder if that kind of thing, you know, largely because of the genius that is Jacob Collier, like that kind of experimenting with just the foundation of music is a little bit more in the mainstream. Like, oh, because he had that song where he transposed the whole thing gradually from what, D flat and a half to D.
Yeah.
Like microtonally transposed the song, but imperceptibly, you know. People are like, oh, you can mess around with that stuff. I had no idea.
Like, is there a psychological element, or like how does that affect like our perception of the music?
Every night I've been just to kind of get the you know, the 2020 and the New York Times out of my brain before I go to bed. I'll put on like a Spotify playlist of like oud playing or something.
Oh, sweet.
And like a lot of that, you know, Arabic classical music, it's microtonal, but like most of the intervals are ones that we recognize from the piano, from Western music. But there's like a sixth, there's like a couple intervals.
Between like the third and the sixth that are quarters, right? Yeah,
and there's like a different version of a note that we use all the time, but it's like, it means something else. It's like a different word, you know, like, oh, that's the kind of minor sixth, but it's also major, and I don't know how to feel that, which is cool.
Yeah, I've been doing a little research into, just through listening, but some of the Kundalini stuff and like the chakras and the tonings, and like reference to like ambient music that people play, but I don't know jack about it. But I think it's interesting that, you know, cultural beliefs around tone and music can have like vastly different meanings, and especially like spiritual meanings.
I feel like a lot of indie music that you much more than I, you know about and listen to these days is like there's so much of a conversation around texture and like the timbre of it.
Yep.
Which is maybe unique to that side of rock and roll.
Good sounds are good.
Mm-hmm. Good sounds are good.
Good sounds are good. Quote me on that.
I love it. Yeah, I just would encourage people to check out Garden to just and have a couple listens on it to just absorb all the sounds that are surrounding your voice and surrounding the lyrics.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Jason McGlone, who mixed it, obviously had so much to do with that. You know, I like can't make something that I record myself, you know, and I do a lot of recording, but I always sound so rough around the edges, you know, like he knows how to make it sound good.
One more question, that kind of just pure music industry gossip controversy. Mm-hmm. The quote by the Spotify CEO that you put a reference to up on Facebook recently. Mm-hmm. Basically the quote is that artists can't record music every 3 to 4 years and think that that's going to be enough for where the industry is currently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, I haven't put out a record since 2015 until this year. So I kind of felt that push, you know. I don't know. Here's the deal. Like, it's BS to have a business model like that and not pay artists while you profit off them. You know, the other side is like, if you do want to make a living as a songwriter and as a musician, you probably do need to put music out. However, not at the sacrifice of art, you know what I mean? If you're the kind of songwriter who wants to just, I'm going to write a sad country album by the numbers and put that out, and it doesn't mean that it's not going to be really good and people aren't really going to like it. But I just think that we shouldn't clutter the airwaves unless you just really love what you're doing. Like, if you make something great, you should share it. But don't just do it for the sake of doing it or because you think that you're going to make money. Because you probably won't. Maybe you will. I don't know. You know, I always think it's so weird, like all these just artists, like once in a while you just have conversations about like how can we kind of scheme the system in terms of like Facebook, YouTube revenue, Spotify revenue. Like those are all valid points because we're all in the industry and we all need to make money. However, like at what point did Dave Mehling or Thomas Nordland or like all these independent artists have to become their own manager, their own art director, their own marketing manager? Like, why do you have to wear all these hats when you're just a musician?
Mm-hmm.
I don't get that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the flip side of that coin is that, like, well, all the stuff that we use to make music is so much cheaper than it used to be. So maybe we do have more opportunity. But I don't know. I don't like it. Lots of people feel like they need to update their Instagram every day. Lots of people feel like they need to put out YouTube videos of them playing live or doing covers or just doing a hot take on some new gear. And if that's what you really want to do, that's sweet. Or if you like want to share like bass lessons or guitar lessons or piano lessons, that's great. But if you feel like you're forced into that box because of the artistic economy or the gig economy, I think that's complete BS. I don't think I'll ever make a lot of money off recorded music. You know, if anything, it would be like hundreds of dollars. Like, why should I like force myself to put out music to make, you know, like, I mean, it costs so much money to record an album, even if it's like DIY. Like, I can't be doing that all the time. Or I'm not going to like start Kickstarters every 6 months to finance a Spotify dream. I don't know, dude. Is that bleak or what?
I think it's realistic. I think
Yeah.
like every time people, you know, a discussion crops up about, you know, like how to game all the Spotify playlists, how to get you know placed in playlists. I have no idea how it works, so that's on me for not researching it. But
I don't either.
But you know, I just think there's, I think you're right. There's such a push without reflection about the intent behind it to just produce content, all the time, and then kind of blindly expect that that's going to earn you an income or notoriety or something. And it's like, well, it kind of benefits the people who host the content.
Absolutely.
Because
not you. Yeah.
They're not paying for it. So I think you're totally right about the idea of, you know, put out the stuff that you think that you really believe in. There's
a whole other social element too. Like when I see people releasing song after song, that like makes me feel like I need to be doing the same thing. You know, sort of a FOMO kind of vibe. Like, and I don't. I shouldn't be. I'm not following in their footsteps. I don't have the same resources. I don't have the same brain or capabilities. You know, like that whole comparison. No good. Bad for the ego and bad for the mood.
Really, it is pretty toxic. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is. Probably too old to know by now. You know, it's a young person's game, right?
That's definitely a realization that you would probably only have, you know, teaching young students, let's say, or being like, oh, I have no idea of the music you just brought me. I don't know who that is. I barely know what TikTok is. Like,
yeah, dude. It was like 2-3 months ago. I was like, I'm gonna make a bunch of ambient TikTok videos, like trippy visuals and ambient music. And I did like 2 of them on my secret TikTok account. And it was like, why am I gonna spend 40 hours doing this? So many other, and I don't even understand what I'm doing or why I'm doing it. You know, like I need to be like practicing or like doing something else because I just think I should be doing it. You know, not Dave, I shouldn't actually.
No, I know why you did it. It was because you read that article on DIY Musician CD Baby, where how to get into TikTok as a 30-something musician.
Yeah.
Like, I should do that.
You know, because we all already have, like, you do and I do sort of have career paths, you know, in terms of educating, composing, arranging, producing, performing, which isn't happening right now, but, like, we don't need to rock the boat too much. I already have like these skills. I should maybe focus on being better at them. But when my TikTok blows up though, my ambient music TikTok, well, because I saw this guy who he had like a filter that was just rainbows and stars, and he was just like dinging a bell, and it was like hashtag ambient, hashtag something chakra, and he had like 250 million TikTok views. It's like, well, I could do that. But why? Is the question I didn't ask myself.
I'd be curious to know if that guy's like, if his whole concept was that the piece of art was him getting the 250 million views on TikTok.
He's probably an investment banker.
Who's that pharmaceutical kind of arch villain that everybody hated for a hot minute?
The guy who bought the Wu-Tang album. I don't know, but screw him.
Well, Dave, this was super, super fun.
It was. Thanks for asking me, Ben.
Yeah, this was awesome. Where can people go to find your music online?
Yeah, I would suggest you go to Bandcamp if you want to grab the single or just listen to it. Otherwise, it should be streaming everywhere. Napster, Deezer. I don't remember some of the more esoteric ones, but Tidal, Spotify. There's a sweet video with my buddy Jason dancing to the song. Check that out. Garden on YouTube. And then, if you look through the single releases, I think I put out like half the tunes from the album. I might only have 4 left. So you can listen to most of the record too. Yeah, I'm just kind of putting them out, and I'll probably put a couple more out, and then the album will be out. And I don't know if I'm going to do a release show yet or what's going to happen.
If we're all living in the biodome at that point, the locusts have eaten all our food supplies as a human species. And I only use MySpace these days, so I wouldn't have necessarily known that. But
right, I was going to do like a live Fortnite concert.
My goodness. That's a whole thing. Twitch?
I don't think...
Yeah.
I don't think the average Fortnite player would dig my music.
I guess that's an interesting question.
Because my students don't really like it. Like the young kids, because it's like they just don't seem to like it that much. Because maybe it's like too adult contemporary or something. I'm not sure.
Like they haven't experienced enough heartbreak yet, or
it's just not. It's not for a 12-year-old. Maybe for a 15-year-old.
The moment when you are like teaching a lesson and you can see the reflection in the kids on the kids' glasses, and it's your song that's been placed in a Fortnite game. Like, I think that's the moment when you'll have arrived. Well, thanks, Dave. This was super fun chatting with you.
Really, sincerely, thanks for asking me to do it.